This is Every Widow Thing.
Hi, everybody. Welcome to Every Widow Thing. We are excited to share so much information with you over this next season. And you may have seen on our social media Instagram page that we have some exciting news that we were celebrating. And I'm going to take it over to Keira and let her share something that I think will inspire all of us and know that life does continue. You're pregnant. No, kidding.
Oh my gosh.
I know, as I said, life will continue. I was like, wait a minute.
I think I need some champagne.
No, but yeah, pass the bottle.
Yeah.
I got engaged over the summer.
Yay!
Yay!
Yay! And how long had you been dating this person?
Yeah, so let's see. So I'm 9 years, just to recap, I'm 9 years out from the car accident that took my husband Frank's life. And it was 9 in June. And I met Brendan probably a little over 5 years in. I had kind of been on and off some dating websites. I had a few setups. I had a couple relationships.
Lacey's laughing. Lacey was there for all of that.
Setups never really go that well, just to be honest. But
she had a lot of fun.
I dated some really nice gentlemen who,
that's right.
You know, one thing that I think when you're going into this process after like losing, you know, your spouse is I had a couple of relationships with some really nice men who, you know, it was just nice to be taken out to dinner and it was nice to take a trip, or sometimes they would come over and help with home projects.
Yes.
As you guys know.
Change light bulbs.
What were their names?
It's just nice to have a man around the house.
Yeah.
I don't know. Does that sound sexist?
But, no, it's so true.
And what I realized, though, is that I was not falling in love. I was not in love with any of those gentlemen. And I, you know, ultimately ended those relationships. But I met Brendan in a period where I was just kind of off the websites, and I had a friend.
You weren't thinking about it as much.
I was just, I guess, taking a break. Yeah. And I had a friend. I had been on Bumble, which is the one that the woman can kind of be in charge of, because I sort of preferred that to getting like a million messages all the time. And
they're based out of Austin, Texas, aren't
they? They are.
Shout out to Bumble.
Yeah.
And anyway, a girlfriend was like, oh, there's this new one called Hinge, and let's get you on there. And she just kind of threw up some pictures and threw me on there. And
threw you on there.
One really funny thing about meeting Brendan, who's my fiance, I guess.
I know,
it's just like a mouthful. Is that he lives a little bit out of my typical, you guys know, because I had the 3 kids, I didn't want to date anyone far away. So I literally had like a 15-mile parameter on my apps.
Yeah.
And he's about 30 miles away. Or maybe it's 30 minutes. It's probably more like 20 miles. But she had just thrown me on there, and that parameter had kind of opened up.
Yeah, you hadn't had a chance to stick in that parameter
to
yet.
his area, which is, he lives a little north of the city. And so, so we met online. And I will say, he's probably going to like this, but we've talked about it. Like the very first date, we definitely connected big time. I mean, it was kind of like, wow.
Like, what does that mean exactly?
Chemistry. There was chemistry. Is that what you mean? Just like you were attracted to him? He looked like his picture.
No, we just, like when like if you think back to when we all met our husbands, we just had one of those dates, which like, wow, we really connected easily. It was easy. It was laughing. There was just chemistry.
How long had y'all been texting? Isn't it funny how I always do the little texting motion?
We'd probably been texting, I have kids. He has a daughter. We'd probably been texting for a few weeks, just trying to coordinate the date, as you guys know. And it ended up being a Wednesday night. randomly, and he had picked this really funny place. Is this too much detail?
No.
Anyway, he had picked this place I'd never heard of that was sort of between where I lived and where he lived, and I was joking about it with my girlfriends that morning at our workout. And they were like, "Where are you meeting this guy?" And
Suburbia.
it was called the Brutorium. And they were all like, "What the hell is that?" But it's
like a brewery.
Brewery. Yeah. And anyway, we were giggling about that. And then we were calling him, I used to nickname most of the men I dated something like where they were from, or in my phone, here's another good tip, widows, I would always put the contact in as a female name. So he was Brenda in my phone.
So was that for your kids?
Because my kids were young enough that they would be picking up the phone and be like, "Who's Maria?" And it was really Mark or whatever.
So Brenda's saying you look hot.
So Brenda's like saying you look hot.
Can't wait to
I want to go out
with
with
you
Brutorium tonight.
Is he still Brenda in your phone?
He is not still Brenda, but all the other people I dated are still in their
I would
female
forget. I would have
iteration.
a hard time keeping. I wouldn't be able to remember.
There's so many.
But I
There's
mean,
so many.
we've all had young kids who are just the phone. It's in the kitchen or they're picking it up to look at the phone, and you don't want. Anyway, that was one of my strategies that you're welcome to borrow. So anyway, the Brutorium
So you knew from the beginning.
went really well. We closed down the place. Again, it's a Wednesday night. We stayed till closing. They actually started playing Closing Time on the patio.
That's hilarious.
So funny.
That's pretty funny.
That's your song. That needs to be your
texted
song.
him the next day. I was like, I think Closing Time.
When you're coming down the aisle at the very end,
Closing
just
time. It is a closing time.
Exactly.
Closing out that.
So anyway, fast forward to, that was the November before the pandemic. So we were kind of just getting kind of serious, and then the pandemic hit. And
Is that 2020? Is that?
Yeah.
It feels like.
we met in 2019.
I'm going to drink my champagne.
Well, can we
cheers?
Yeah,
so we
let's
can drink.
cheers.
Sorry, this is too long-winded.
No,
it isn't.
No, I want to hear it all.
You guys know most of this.
I was just getting to know you.
They don't, but they
Our
don't.
audience doesn't know.
But they don't know, and
but
there's
do they
probably
care?
some details.
Yeah, it's fun. It's
Yeah.
fun to
We wanna hear
listen.
all the
It was
good
only after
stuff.
you came and had coffee with me in my backyard that I really got. I was like, "This is he's it.
Yeah.
He's it."
So
And I
closing
will say
time, that's
Lacey
awesome.
was with me for a lot of some of the other men I dated. She had met.
Two
and
that I remember.
she was like, they're pretty
came
nice,
to my house.
but they're not. That's not going.
But
anywhere.
Brendan's the one I thought was, he's awesome.
Yeah. So the pandemic hit, and it was make or break, right? It was either
Yeah. Did y'all spend a lot of time together?
we did.
Because-
He ended up moving in. Him and his daughter kind of moved in with me initially because his daughter was back and forth, and we were worried about his ex-wife was still working in healthcare, in a healthcare capacity. And we were just worried about that. So, I'm just sort of like a home, bring everyone here. I'll be cooking and shopping and
When was
going
the trip?
and-
Wasn't there a trip to Spain or something? Somewhere in
yes,
there?
we went to
wow.
Barcelona the New Year's before. So 2020, he came to Barcelona with me and my kids and another
See, I
family.
remember it being kind of early on. I thought, wow, that is brave.
Yeah.
But you knew already. You kind of knew.
Well, a
He
lot
was
of people
gonna-
thought that was a dicey move. I guess I was like, come on, let's go to Spain.
So when did you tell your kids that obviously he ended up moving in during the pandemic or whatever, but when did you tell them that you'd met someone, and did you say you think it's going to
Clearly before
be
New Year's.
serious?
Yeah, so I would right around Christmas.
So you met in November,
early.
and Christmas you're
Yeah.
telling your kids.
When you lay it out like that, it sounds,
No, but that happens all the time.
It sounds a
People,
little
when
bit
you know,
hasty.
you know.
But you-
well, Oliver and I
mean-
met married in 8 months, but
Yeah.
engaged in 3. I think you know when you know.
I was just
Yeah.
cures
I
how you
mean,
handled the kids.
I don't
Well, I
think there
want to
is
say
a-
also at this point, my kids were
I knew you were
older.
dating.
So they were like 10, 15, and 17. They were older. They weren't as little. I felt like they, would be on board with somebody, meeting somebody. Because
Right.
at this point, I had pretty much kept most of my dating from them.
It had been 6 years at least.
It's been over 5 years since.
Yeah, but
their death.
still, I mean, my kids were older, and even now I keep that stuff pretty close. And
I think you go with your gut. I think so. To backtrack a second, some of the men I dated, somewhat seriously for a few months, didn't have kids, and I think the fact that he had a kid kind of made it.
And close in age.
He just understood. He gets kids. He's a dad. All of that came into play, and I think everyone just has to kind of take every scenario. The way that, just follow your gut. Like, you know your kids, you know yourself,
But did you sit down with, like, how did that, I'm just curious, how did that work? Like, do you have a sit down with everyone?
Is there a reason
I've
you're
met
so
someone?
interested in this?
No, well, I'm just interested in,
how to introduce the boyfriend to the children? Would you like
I'm
me to?
just curious, like, mine are older now, so I don't think I would have to, I don't know what I would do, but I was just curious.
Yeah.
For the listeners.
So, we kept the relationship separate, but it was I would say it moved quickly and quickly became pretty intense. And then I had already planned this trip to Barcelona for me and the kids for after Christmas. After the accident, I kind of started doing more of, the sitting around the tree and the Christmas was difficult for me. So I started doing more planning, like, of trips around the holidays. And it was a time that we were all together. The kids were off school. So I had already planned this trip with another family to go to Spain. And I don't know, like, I probably had like one too many cocktails one night and was like, hey, like, do you want to come? I knew he didn't have his daughter that at that time. That they were handing off over the holidays.
Right.
He had her like for Christmas, but then not after. And I was like, hey, do you want to come on this trip with me and my kids to Barcelona? I already had the apartment.
So he just showed up on the flight and you're like, hey, he's coming along?
So then when he decided, yes.
Whitney likes the detail.
Yeah. Then when he said, yes, I would like to join, I said, oh, gosh, we better introduce you to my family.
I had a friend that pretended that brought her boyfriend along on a trip to Iceland, and her kids were there, and she didn't mention anything, and then she pretended like they had befriended each other on the flight.
Oh my gosh,
that his room
hysterical.
had gotten like mixed up.
That's
and he didn't have
elaborate.
anywhere to stay.
Oh,
So then she was like,
way.
oh, well, we have an extra room. You can stay
That's
with
funny.
us.
Did they end up together?
No.
Okay.
I had him over for dinner, and everybody sat everybody down, and I said, this is someone I'm dating. And then I think they met him a couple more times, and then I think I said, oh, and by the way, I think he's going to come.
Going to Spain.
And what worked about that is we were already going with another family that we're really close with. So my kids were already really close with that family, the parents, the kids.
So there were other people. It wasn't just like
it wasn't just
you,
us.
your family, and Brendan.
Exactly.
Right.
Exactly.
And Brendan's such an easygoing guy. I would imagine he knows how to kind of adapt to whatever's going on in the room. He seems like that type of person
Yeah.
to me. The
Mhm.
times I've been around him,
He does.
He's not overbearing. He's not Joe salesman.
But you can be the greatest person in the world, and the kids will have resentment or, a loyalty that puts up a wall too,
I guess I'm taking it from like my son. He wants me to have that. So I assume like your kids.
Yeah.
Maybe it's different than divorce. I think divorce, maybe it's more
I
contentious
think
that
if they're
way.
still alive, then yeah.
But
it
when they're
definitely
dead
would
and they've
make
been
a
dead as
difference.
long as your husband had been dead, I think that they want you to be happy. They want
Yeah.
their mother. They don't want the pressure of having to make sure their mom's happy.
Yeah.
So when they leave the nest, I'm sure for Thomas and your daughter, I think they probably are thinking, great, she's got somebody. I don't have to worry about her.
Yeah.
So
All
there's
right,
that.
let's get to
I
the
don't
juicy
know.
details. So
Yeah, so
let's
juicy
fast
details.
forward.
So fast forward, we've been together almost 4 years. So it'll be 4 years in November.
Mm.
And I've launched 2 children to college now. So that was kind of a lot, as you guys know. It's kind of it's a busy time when you're graduating kids from high school and you're applying to colleges and you're shipping kids and all that. So we had talked about getting married someday, but we just hadn't really sat down and hammered it out. And honestly, when I first met Brendan, he was against remarrying because he had had a difficult divorce, and he just was like, I don't think I can ever get married again. And I was very open about the fact that I had a wonderful marriage and would really want that again someday, but I didn't allow it, to deter. I didn't like dump him. I was like, okay, well, let's just continue to get
see
to know
where it
each other.
goes.
So fast forward to this summer, we were juggling kids as usual, and he wanted to plan a trip for just the two of us, which is really sweet. And
you were not going to go on it.
Yeah,
I remember at the pizza place, you were like, I don't think I'm going to go. Maybe I shouldn't go.
I had a little bit of an overwhelming summer. I had a lot going on with the kids.
Another girl could have gotten your ring.
And I know. And I was like, he insisted. And obviously, I was excited to go. But I just, in that moment, I was feeling overwhelmed.
Your plate was full and you thought, how can I leave town?
Exactly.
That's understandable.
Yeah. And so, long story short, he planned the trip to Maui, which we'll get to in a minute, because it was right before the fire. And, a couple people, close friends, were like, oh, he's going to propose and all these things. And I said, no, we're really not there yet. I had actually dragged my feet on, he had asked me, we'd looked at rings on one trip in New York, and he had asked me about the ring, but I was like, well, I don't really know. What do you want second time around? You don't really think about it.
That is a hard thing, right? Like you don't want the same. Like what were you thinking when he asked you that? Not what were you thinking about him saying, "Let's get a ring," but when you were trying to think about what you would want, did you really consider your old ring at all?
I think my mind was just a blank. I mean, I love my ring from Frank. I still have it. It's beautiful. It's 3 ovals. I haven't worn it in a long time. I don't know. That was my problem. I was like, gosh, I don't even know what that would look like. So, but then on his insistence, he was just like, just send me some ideas. So I sent him one ring that I thought I had seen online that I thought was really pretty a couple months ago. Never figured out what my size was because I haven't worn a ring so long. Your body changes and things change. And that was it. So anyway, we get to Maui, and we're like 2-3 days in. We're sitting around the pool. I have a couple Mai Tais in me, and I just kind of brought up, where are we with things? And, what's our plan? And how come you never want to talk about it? And remember that time when you said you would never get married again? And, I was just doing all the things when you kind of pick a fight, I guess, is sort of what I was doing. Kind of bad.
Mai Tais will do that.
And he, I think I was just kind of
getting wearing a lollipop ring.
I think I was just getting a little frustrated in the relationship. Like, well, what's going to happen next? And, I was giving him a hard time about how he never, whenever it came up, I felt like it was me bringing it up, like what would the future look like? And I don't want to say never because he would engage in those conversations, but I felt like it was always
the Mai Tais were telling you.
The Mai Tais said it's his fault. So we have this fight, which I think carries on back to the suite. And then we were getting ready for dinner or something. And he just kind of, at one point, he just kind of took me by the shoulders, was like, we're in Maui. Just trust me. Can we just move forward? Can we just have
you're
fun?
like creating a fight.
Can we just have a good time?
Right.
And I still didn't think. So the next day, or might have even been that night, we were supposed to drive up to the top of Haleakala, which is the volcano there. And we were going up for sunset, which is supposed to be less crowded than sunrise. And it was like an hour and a half to get up there, and then it gets chilly. So we packed like some warm clothes. And we get to we drive about an hour from the resort, maybe not that much. And then we get to the entrance of the national park, which is at the base of the volcano. And the park ranger is like, well, it's full up there. There's no parking. You won't be able to park. And we're like, oh no. And Brendan's like,
but you have no idea that this is anything
I just
more
think
than
we're
just
going up to the
sunset.
And so he says, oh, well, we're just going to go up and see. So we start driving, and it's just, I don't know if who's been to the top. You've been to the top.
It's a nightmare, scary drive.
It is. It's a twisty drive. So I'm sitting very quietly so that he can focus on the road. And I'm just sort of looking out, and it's
Beautiful, though.
It's an incredible experience. You start in this kind of foggy, low bit, and then you start to get above the clouds, and you feel like you're in an airplane. I mean, you're looking out, and you're over.
Yeah, you sent a
really
picture,
is
and I
beautiful.
thought you were in an airplane.
Yeah.
I didn't know what was going on.
I only knew where it was because I'd been there a
I
couple
hadn't
years
been
ago.
since my
And I'm like,
20s.
oh, I know where she is.
So I didn't really remember where
So
you were.
you're above the cloud line, and I'm just kind of looking out the window, and I'm taking some pictures, and I'm letting him focus. And I'm also kind of stressed because I'm like, well, what if we don't get a parking spot and we can't? Because I'm like in logistics in my mind.
Sure.
But I think I was telling you guys that I had this feeling looking out over the clouds, and then you know how sometimes there's light that kind of comes through, and I sort of have this thing whenever the light comes through. Maybe this sounds cheesy or very like
It doesn't.
predictable.
Dude, you know I'm
It
eating it up.
Feels like Frank. It feels like heaven. It feels like maybe Frank is peeking through the clouds. And
Yes.
a stream of
love
light
that.
is coming.
Yes.
And I have those moments periodically, not all the time, but so on the way up, I kind of had that like feeling that he was there, I
He
guess.
was with you.
I'm going to get upset. So
No, you're getting emotional.
I know.
not
So we
upset.
get to the top, and Brendan's in logistics mode.
right.
Now
He's
I
like
know.
white
He's like-
knuckling.
He's like,
we have to get there. And you're like, what is wrong with you?
I can't even
He's got
imagine
the
what's
ring in
going
his
through his
pocket.
head.
Oh,
He's
God.
like,
I'm gonna get
Oh
there.
my god.
The first parking lot, there's a first parking lot, and then there's the one at the top. And we get to the first parking lot, and he's like, there's a spot. And it's like, into the spot. And we throw on like our jackets and our hats. And because we have to do like a 10 or 15 minute hike to the top, we get up there and we're high-fiving because we got the parking spot.
Right.
We get to the top, and you're really at the top, and it's all volcanic rock, and it's just cool. You feel like you're on the moon, or I don't know, Venus or Mars or something. And all these people are sitting on the ledge, and so I kind of walk over and I see this little rock, and I kind of sit down. And he just keeps walking. I'm like, babe, this is a good spot. And he just keeps going. And I'm like, okay. So I'm following him, and he keeps going and going.
He had a
and going.
plan.
And he gets all the way to where there's just no people. So we're just at the end of the crowd. And he sits down, and I'm like, are you good? Like, is this going to work for
Is
you?
this the spot?
And I'm kind of annoyed because I want to get in position and get ready for the sunset. And we're sitting I'm sitting with my phone out, and he's sitting, and he starts this kind of speech, I guess, that is
And you're
like,
half listening. You're like, look at this.
You're like,
Is
I'm
he
watching the
talking?
sunset.
He's over here.
he's like, and ever since I've met you, and that's sort of like, and all of a sudden I just like look at him, and I'm like, what are you talking about right now? Like, it's about to go down. And what are you doing?
He said, I'm about
You're
to get
missing
down
it.
on
And
one
he's
knee.
like,
Did
I'm
he
about
do
to-
it? Did he
Yes.
get down on one
So
knee?
I
Oh my
look at
gosh.
him, and then I can see like he's getting emotional, and there's like,
Oh.
and I'm like, oh my God. And he gets down, and he gets down on one knee, and I'm kind of in shock. And then he pulls out the ring, and it's the ring that I had sent that I was like, I really like this ring.
Oh.
The one ring that you sent.
I know, the slacker that I am. And he, said, I think he didn't ask, like, will you marry me? He said, would you make me the happiest man in the world and be my wife?
Oh.
And he busts out the ring, and then I put the ring on, and I'm like sort of shaky, and it's a little cold, and the ring is a little oversized. And so in my mind, I'm panicking that the ring is going to go like tumbling down the volcano. And I'm trying to keep the ring on and kiss him and hold the.
Is there anybody that's come up there during that
Do they
time?
know what's happening?
Did
No, because
anybody
it was
see
sort of
that?
a quiet moment, honestly.
Yeah, that's
We
cool.
were removed, and it happened really quickly. And, and everyone else is looking at the sunset. So sweet. It was just
And
the two
you're
of-
thinking about it tumbling down the.
I,
of course.
like,
I
all the
cannot
things
let
that
go
go
of
through
the
your
train.
brain.
Well, I
Yeah.
think all of us kind of maybe have that kind of tragedy moment. I always have that about everything. Like everything, I always think, oh, that could happen.
I
don't
could
know
just
if
feel that
that's
it was a little
trauma
too big.
or-
So that's
because-
why
Oh, it's
does not
being
have a ring
resized.
on. It's
It's
being
being
That's why she
resized.
does not have it.
I'm getting it back tomorrow. But if I could tell it was a little oversized and my hands were cold because it drops down. The temperature drops way down when you get up there. And anyway, it was so sweet. And we just kind of kissed and hugged and
Aw.
watched the sunset.
Aw, I think that
Love
requires
it.
a refill.
And
Yeah.
yeah. So, as a widow, it's
Here you
like
go.
you don't know if this is ever going to happen to you again. You don't know if you're ever going to find
That's why I said you're giving a lot of people
that kind
a
of
lot of
love
hope
again.
that there
and-
is love a second time around. We all know it's different, but that's okay.
Yeah.
And you're the least woo woo of us all. So the fact that you got that little peek of this, I think it's significant. So just
Oh,
go with that.
That to me,
You're the least woo woo.
I
Yeah, I
well,
know.
and you even
Did he know
even
you
now
type
you
like a
try
dude?
to try
Did
to
he know that?
I text like a man. Yes.
Yeah. You and even
She told me he did. He was
now
like,
when you
"What?"
talk about it with us, you will act like, well, maybe I think it was Frank, but I'm not sure it was Frank.
It was Frank.
It was
I told you guys
Frank.
right away. I told you guys and I told Frank's sister that he was with me.
So talk about your kids because he did include them.
He did.
So talk about that for a minute.
So, so my son had been on a trip earlier in the summer and I was going to pick him up from the airport, I think. And Brendan was like, oh, let me go get him. And he offered to get him. And I was kind of like, oh, I missed him because he'd been gone. And I was like, I kind of want to see him, but okay. So he went to pick up Thomas a few weeks before our trip to Hawaii. And he, I guess, spoke to him about this in the car and had a talk with my son.
Oh, so sweet.
Who, as you all know, is 18 and I just dropped at college.
And such a wonderful
Oh, I
person.
know.
And
He is.
I thought that was really sweet that he felt like Thomas was the person to
Go
talk
to.
to
Mhm.
about it.
Man to man. I
Yeah.
think that's a good idea.
And then he had also called my father, who lives in Virginia. And so he had spoken to my dad also and said, don't tell Lynn, don't tell my mom, because he wanted it to be a surprise and he wanted them to be surprised, her to be surprised too, right?
Sure.
Her and the girls, I guess he just decided, my mom and the girls, we can all kind of be surprised
Yeah.
together.
Yeah.
Oh, I didn't realize
and
that
girls
the girls
might
did not know.
Tend to tell more.
Yeah. Well, and his daughter was at sleepaway camp without her phone. So that was also why we didn't sort of immediately post on Instagram and things. It was just we were waiting until she got back from sleepaway camp.
Did she know?
No. I mean, we had conversations with our younger girls just around, I had with Karis around how would you feel if this at some point this happened, and they were on board, and he said that he had a similar conversation with Allie. So they didn't know that this was impending, but they knew that it was a possibility.
Yeah.
So, and everybody was super excited. Thomas was super excited. My parents, his parents, everybody's on board.
So exciting.
So
I know. Yeah, yes. There wasn't
exciting.
anybody that was like, "Oh, terrible idea." But
And we think it's a good idea.
so
He's a
yeah. So
sweetheart.
we didn't really. We got back and we were trying to go pick up his daughter from camp, and then sadly, Maui had this horrible fire happen literally a week after we were there, and we were in Lahaina the last night at this amazing restaurant called Mala Ocean Tavern, which somehow was spared miraculously.
that's great.
Oh.
But then we went to
Can't
Fleetwood's,
imagine.
which is a famous bar in Old Town, and that is gone. So it was just really hard to watch that. It kind of, you wanted to temper your celebration, especially
Sure.
since. So then we were like, well, it's not really appropriate to post look, we just got engaged in Maui. Now it's on fire.
Right.
I have donated. Please donate if anyone's listening or feels like they have a connection to Maui or
Yeah,
wants to
I'm sure
donate.
we can put a link to some different.
There's lots of good causes. I ended up just really quickly doing baby to baby in the very beginning because they were looking for supplies for kids. But now they're trying to rebuild, and there's all kinds of need there for sure. I think the president was just there yesterday. So, but yeah, no, I'm excited for this new chapter. I think it is a very hopeful place to be in my life right now.
And I know at some points during your time before Brendan, I guess it would be like BB. BB and AB.
Yeah.
But before Brendan, I'm sure there were times in your life where you were like, I'm never going to find anybody. There's nobody else. I'm never going to be a partner with someone.
Yeah, I definitely, I went through all the phases that may be different for everyone. Initially, I really wanted to fill that hole for the kids. Like my kids were little and I was like, I got to find a father figure for these kids. And so initially it was almost like a mission to, find someone for them. And then as I got, further along in the dating process, I realized, there's just not a quick fix for a great love. I mean, you just have to be patient and wait. And sometimes it happens and sometimes it doesn't. And I feel so fortunate that now I've had two. But I definitely got to a point as my kids got older and as I had sort of muscled through the single mom, journey that I felt like we're going to be okay. They're going to be okay. I'm going to be okay.
Mm-hmm.
This doesn't have to look like the family that that family unit that you've lost that you want to recreate so badly.
You can't
Every family is
recreate it.
different. There's lots of different kinds of families out there. And I really had gotten to that point when I met him. And that was a really good place for me to be.
Well, I think that's a great lesson for everyone. It's something that I really believe. When you let go of the outcome, when you let go of expectation and outcome, and you are just trying to live in the present moment and create the best life for yourself with what you have, then I believe more is brought in and it's icing on the cake. You're already creating a happy place. And so you're fine with whatever happens next. And that really is when more amazing things tend to happen, I think, because you're not expecting it. It's like going to a movie and not knowing how great it is.
And you don't
And it
want to
was really
settle.
great.
And none of us are going to settle. That's not going to happen because we had great loves and that set the bar really high. And we're not looking to replicate what we had, but it sets the bar pretty high. You want a guy that you feel like can be for the long haul and someone that's, I know for me, I would rather wait. I would rather wait.
Yeah, and you were doing that before Oliver. So
Yeah,
you understand it better
I would
than a lot
rather,
of
I waited a
people.
long time to find him. There were other things that were more important to me than
Right.
finding someone at the time.
Right.
I loved my career. But I think that even on this end, when I've had a long time without somebody, I would rather wait. I would rather have, like what you have somebody who you're crazy about, your kids really like, and
Yeah.
it's worth the wait.
It sure
to me,
is.
I have plenty of friends to play with, and I know you guys do too. It's better that, and then just also fill up your own life. Fill up your own life. Make it good. Like there are hard things that are going to continue to happen. Like there are hard things going on in my life, and I'm sure you too. My mother's not well, and I'm going to be an empty nester, but I decided I'm going to embrace, even on those hard days, I'm healthy. I have the ability to travel, and I'm going to focus on that. And then I think that's when amazing things happen. We can't promise that people are going to meet another person.
No, you
'Cause
have
when
to get
people
to a
say
point
that-
where you don't need.
That's
you're
right.
not worrying about that. I'm going
Right.
to live my life and have a great life. I'm going to go do pole dancing or aerial.
And I do have some people in my life that have no interest in finding, quote, that person. We like our life the way it is.
Right.
And
Yeah.
I think it's important to embrace that as you go through your life, just to, and then you'll have love. It may not be that kind of love. It just may be love with people and friends. And so I kind of feel like that's the goal.
And take that, it was helpful for me to take that pressure off early on. I took that pressure off myself. I was trying to fill that need for my kids.
Yeah.
And that's not a good way to approach a new relationship, like
Too much pressure.
take the pressure off yourself to find that person. Just dig into what your family looks like in the moment. And that's it was me and my kids. And, we formed a really nice bond through that. And then Brendan coming along is just kind of the icing on the cake.
Totally.
Yeah.
I think if your kids have, my dad always said this because he was really raised mostly by his mother. His father was MIA a lot of the time, but he said, if you have one advocate in your life, you've got something major. And all of us have been there for our children, 150%. They've got us. So if we don't find that quote extra person, like mine's too old now. I mean, if he has a stepdad now, it's kind of silly. He's 18. He doesn't care. And he didn't care back then. He said, I got you.
I will say,
So I think it takes the pressure off when you're dating to find someone for you.
Yeah.
Not trying to find someone for, my 6-year-old.
And think about those years beyond. Now that I've launched 2 and I'm down to 1 kid, I've got all this time, I'm looking at my parents, all this time without the kids, and
That's right.
I'm looking for someone that I can have a good time with. And he and I, we both like to travel. We both like the same kind of music. We both,
and you're
are
in the
fairly
same
social.
boat as far as the age of your kids. You're gonna be.
Yeah.
I mean, I hate to say free, but you'll be empty nesters at the same time
Together.
versus-
Yeah.
It's something to think about. Like, this is my rule. I'm not dating anybody. Well, I'm not dating right now at all. I just need to get my kid off to college. But once that is, nobody that has kids at home for me, because mine's gone. I'm finally, after 12
So
years
you
of
won't
raising,
date anyone with kids still at home? Is that
unless
your-
they are like at the tail end of like senior year or something like.
Never
or
say
something.
never. 'Cause
Well,
she
maybe
said
not, because
15
that is
years.
really
no
funny.
toddlers, no toddlers.
You
But I
never
just
know.
keep thinking
Well,
12
I would
years
not do that
Yeah.
again.
of doing that by
Congratulations
yourself.
to
The
you
last
and Brendan.
Yeah,
thing I do.
congratulations.
Congrats.
You guys are so cute. Thank you.
We love you. We're excited
Cheers.
we're excited to
I
watch
love all your
this
love and
next chapter.
support. I remember when you guys first met him. Did you first? Well, you met him earlier on, but then at my birthday party.
Yeah, that's when I cornered
and
him.
everyone, gave him the thumbs up.
I
and
just like the way he looked at you.
it's important to me.
And that was all I needed to know, was that when we were having cocktails, I was like, hello? I was trying to talk to him and he was looking at you the whole time, just to see how you would respond, because he cared that what he was saying was okay to you. And that to me was all I needed to know.
We'll check in 20 years and then we'll see.
Yeah. I'm
He's
sure
still
it'll be the
looking at me
same.
like that.
I'm sure.
Well,
But-
we just want everyone to, feel inspired by Keira's story and know that your life is not over. Whether it be with another partner or, like Lacey was saying, make your own life
That's right.
happy and fulfilling. And there's a reason we're all still here. So
To be your tribe.
that's right.
That's
we're
why
gonna
we're
be your
here.
tribe. All right. We will see you soon.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye.